it kind of intentional. So we're going to offer, thinking in your mind, you're offering all the marvelous things of the world, you know, this ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, make it gorgeous, you know. So you're not sure about Mount Meru with the 4 continents and the sun and the moon, but if you're going to visualize that, fine. Otherwise, just think of all the marvelous things in this world. Think of it as sublime and like a Buddha field, and then we offer it. And it's a request for the teachings, as if Buddha were here right now. And if we understood what Buddha meant, Buddha is here right now. The pure, unmanifest, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-compassionate, all-wise, all-pervasive consciousness. It is everywhere. So we think of offering to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. It's really auspicious to do that. And then our second little prayer, the first 2 lines we're reiterating our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings for those of us who already identify as being Buddhist. And the second 2 lines are stating our purpose, our motivation. And that's going to be that's the real essence of today's talk. This business of the so-called 8 worldly Dharmas. It's all about what drives us to do things. And that's what the Buddhists mean by motivation. And when we get to this, we really understand what being a Buddhist means, you know. So the second 2 lines are the motivation. And so here you have this altruistic motivation. You can't get a bigger thought than thinking, I'm going to listen to these teachings. Why? So I can develop my amazing potential. Why? So I can, for my own sake, clearly, so I can become a Buddha and better than others. You can't get something bigger than that. So what we're going to be talking about today is exactly the power of motivation, how it drives everything, and how by being skillful with our motivations, this is how we transform our minds. So here we put in this motivation as the basis for this practice we're doing, this teaching we're doing, this event we're involved in today. I've got a separate cushion today. I've got 2 cushions today, so I'm higher than the Buddha. What can I do? Okay. All right. Saji perki jogsing metog tramri rablingji ni de genpadi Sangye jingdu mikte ulwagi drokon namdag jingla chapashok. Imagine the Buddha happily receives our offering. Yadam Guru Rashna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. And now, Sangye Chadang Toke Chognam La Janto Badu Dagni Kapsuchi. Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shog Sangye Chadang Toke Chognam La Janto Badu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shog Sangye Chadang Toke Chognam La Janto Badu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shog. Okay, so what are these weird 8 worldly things? What does it mean? Well, I suppose it's like in any body of knowledge, whether it's tennis or computers, they develop a language, don't they? You know, there's a language, you know, and if you're not familiar with that language and you hear something about an IT or a something, you don't know what they're talking about. So you have to learn the language, and they all get, you know, and they develop this cliched language. So this 8 worldly Dharmas, I don't know where it evolved. I don't know where this term came from. I don't know enough about it all. I don't know whether it evolved. I don't know whether the Indians called it that before the Tibetans came along, or whether the Tibetans have kind of packaged this. I mean, presented, it's all Buddhist teachings, but this phrase, I don't know. I just don't know. I can't tell you. So it's what's interesting is where you hear about, where it's taught, where this attitude, this approach to these 8 worldly Dharmas, where it's taught, is actually in the Mahayana part, is in the more advanced level. And another, maybe a way I'd say of putting it, it's a more sophisticated, a more subtle way of understanding attachment. So, you know, we all know if we're on the wisdom wing, and that's much of the teachings I give is about the wisdom wing, about karma and the mind and delusions, then we have to understand the Buddha's view of what attachment is. Then we're going to understand the 8 worldly Dharmas. We're going to understand it very clearly. So it's just a pervasive, more pervasive, more totally kind of pervasive and more primordial excuse me, way of attachment functioning, how it pervades our lives, how it underpins everything we do. So the framework for it in the compassion wing, because the compassion wing is all about helping others, you know, but still the point there is, it's very interesting. It's not just rushing about helping others. We hear that when we think of compassion, I'm going to help others. But the way of presenting the compassion wing is all in terms of still continuing to work on your own mind. And the approach here is to continue to lessen the delusions, to rip the delusions out, because they are what are preventing you from helping others. So in the first stages of practice, the wisdom wing, you know, the main purpose behind abiding by the laws of karma, which is junior school, grade 1 entry level, the first scope of the Lam Rim, the first scope of practice, the whole thing there, the main thing underpinning that is this caution of not, that drives you to not want to kill, to not want to steal, to not want to lie, to eventually take refuge and live in vows. Why? Is because you don't want future suffering. You know, and I say this all the time, but this is something that for us in the West sounds very selfish. Oh, how can I think that? Oh, surely I've got to not kill for the sake of others. Yeah, eventually, of course. But you've got to first recognize the impact of every single tiny thing we think and do and say. This is Buddha's entire point, that everything we think and do and say programs this person. So it's like self-care. You know, you in order to help other people with nutrition, you have got to first learn to know how to make yourself healthy. It's kind of obvious. If you want to teach people tennis, you have to learn tennis. That's the wisdom wing. And when you're playing tennis, as you're learning to hit your background, your backhands and your forehands, you're not thinking, oh, how can I teach another person how to do a better backhand? It's too soon for that. You've got to know how to do the best backhand now to make you the best tennis player. It's nothing wrong with that. Nobody questions that in ordinary world. But as soon as it comes to spiritual, we get all kind of nervous. So this is a really powerful point. And then the next level is on the basis of then working on karma and subduing your body and speech and stopping yourself from creating future suffering, because you're sick of suffering, you're fed up to here with suffering. Then you start to get into your mind. And that's where you start to learn about attachment. And again, the purpose behind this one is not for the sake of sentient beings yet. The whole wisdom wing is you being super cautious and preventing yourself with your body, speech, and mind to not harm others. That has to be the thing you think about strongly. Why? Because you know what Buddha says, Robina, honey, when you kill and you lie and you steal and you follow attachment and you follow anger, guess who you harm? You've got to have some self-respect, mate. Can't take care of yourself. See, you know, because when we follow the delusions and follow the harming, and we are harming ourselves. We've got to get in touch with this. This is so profound. And you can't, if you don't get this properly and get what they call renunciation, I'm going to renounce suffering and its causes. Why? Because I'm sick of suffering. You can't have proper compassion wing. It won't be deep enough. It won't be profound enough. Because the whole approach of compassion is based on the understanding that everybody is in the same boat. Everybody is harming themselves. So from here all the way to Buddhahood, this one is constant. You're working on your mind. The main emphasis first is because you're sick of suffering. Then you get to the compassion wing and you've subdued, you've got a real sense of renunciation. You really understand that you're sick of suffering. You understand karma, you understand the delusions, and you're fed up with suffering. And you're going to watch yourself like a hawk because you're sick of sowing seeds for future suffering. You've got to have that. That's renunciation. It's profound. But it is in also still the framework of bodhicitta because you're on the Mahayana path. When you're learning tennis, you're thinking totally about your best backhand and your best forehand for yourself, but underpinning it, you know you're going to help others later. So the emphasis has to be for yourself first. You've got to have this. And if we just think, oh, I have compassion for others, but not for myself, you haven't got the point at all. You're missing something crucial. So it's in the high school one, the middle scope, as you know, the Lamas call it, in the Lam Rim, where you've subdued your body and mind, body and speech to some degree, you now can really start becoming your own therapist. And you start to learn the Buddhist model of the mind. This is the basis of much of the teachings I give. You know, how do you touch on the compassion wing? I mean, I was in Santa Fe, you know, a couple of years ago. Rinpoche had to have a meeting about his book, death book. I was doing the book. And I asked, and he kind of said to me, do you ever teach on bodhicitta? And I kind of blurted out, oh, Rinpoche, that's too heavy. I can't cope. So we'll talk about that today. And it is heavy. I mean, the compassion teachings are pretty profound, you know. The level to which we can accomplish compassion and love are unbelievable, unbelievable. But they're on the basis of success at the first level, you know. So, okay. So in the middle scope, when we learn about the mind, we learn that text called Lo Rig I've mentioned, mind and awareness, where you learn the Buddhist model of the mind, you learn about the contents, and the crucial job there is being your own therapist, as I mean, as she puts it, as we've talked often enough, is you learn to distinguish between the neuroses and the virtues. This is the fundamental job of being a Buddhist. I mean, I can't stress this enough. When people talk about mindfulness, there's no mention of this. There's no, because not even an understanding of it, because it's not how we think in our culture, you know, it's just not how we think. Hang on a second, I have to do something. So this is the unique approach to the Buddhist view of the mind. And if we don't get it here, we can't possibly begin to understand the 8 worldly dharmas, which is the point here. So, you know, as we talk about often, there's this unique approach to the mind that Buddha has, where he has this, where we have to develop this incredibly sophisticated skill on the basis, of course, of concentration meditation to some degree or ever that we can, plus on the knowledge, on the awareness, on the understanding of the way the mind works. You've got 3 categories of states of mind, putting it very simply. You've got the neurotic, deluded, I-based, fear-based, ridiculous, over-the-top mental illnesses, the 3 poisons, and then the other 83,997 that come as a result of those. The 3 crucial ones are the ego grasping, the misconception of the concrete self in the first place, then this bottomless pit of emotional hunger to get what that fantasy I wants, and then the panic attack when it doesn't, which is called anger. These 3, seemingly so simple, but profound. So when we begin to understand these, then we can begin to we can have to identify them. So this is a bit like, you know, it's such a nice analogy, but if you're never heard of botany, you've got a garden that's overgrown, just masses of overgrown stuff, and you don't know botany. Well, of course, how can you possibly do anything? You can't even lift a finger to begin to know what to pull out or what to leave there, can you? Until you learn botany. Well, that's exactly the approach in Buddhism. Because, you know, the reference point is, I mean, the goal is to become a Buddha, rid of all the rubbish, full of all the goodness. So that tells us the methodology. You have to learn to distinguish between the rubbish and the goodness. And that sounds like so cute, but it's not cute. It's profound and sophisticated. Because why? Because it's like this overgrown garden in here that we've never paid attention to. We keep blaming everybody else for putting these bad things in our mind, and our bad misery, and our anger, and our depression, and our jealousy. Everyone else does it to us. No, Buddha says. Yeah, they do mean things. They do punch you in the nose. They do sack you, and they are kind to you, but they're not the main cause. We've got to get in touch with the mind itself, you know. So if there's an overgrown, massive, untended garden in here, and it is, you look at the mind from the second you wake up in the morning until the second we go to sleep, it's just this constant stream of thoughts. So much so that they don't even feel like thoughts. They're just this kind of noise in the background. And that noise only comes stronger when when the anger arises strongly, when the attachment arises strongly, when the jealousy arises strongly, when someone insults us, offends us, hurts us, then the stuff comes up. But it's there all the time. But we're so preoccupied with the external world, we just don't pay attention, you know. So we've got to learn to pay attention. We've got to learn to be conscious and looking inwards. And it's not some mystical thing. It's a precise job to do. And even though when we learn about mindfulness and things in our culture, we don't learn that kind of clarity and precision that the Buddhist view of the mind explains to us, you know. So the more we have concentration, the more we learn the words first. I mean, you have to learn botany. You can have as much concentration as you like. You can be totally mindful of that entire garden. You can even, you know, you have such concentration, you can even draw a drawing of the garden and replicate perfectly what's there because it's so clear in your memory. But if you haven't learned botany, what good is that? What good is having concentration if you don't know what you're looking at? The only reason to have concentration is so we can see what the hell is going on in our mind. The only reason you learn botany, plus your concentration, you then look at the garden and you start to go, wow, look at that. There's a weed, there's a herb, there's a flower. You didn't see that before because you didn't know botany. Same with our mind. Our problem is too, as I've talked often enough, we are so convinced that anger, attachment, jealousy, depression, fear, love, compassion, the good ones too, are emotions, and that somehow they're kind of physically based because they make us feel strong physical experiences. And that's only because the love, the compassion, the anger, the jealousy are deep in our bones because we've practiced them before. And they trigger the experiences in the body. And our trouble is, because we're so preoccupied with our body, we're so addicted to thinking this is me, then we don't pay attention to what's going on in our mind until it triggers experiences in the body. And that's like going at 100 miles an hour on the freeway, and you never paid attention to your wheels in the past, never paid attention to your car, and it's only now at 100 miles an hour that you notice your wheels are falling off. Oh, what'll I do? My wheels are falling off. Well, it's a bit late, isn't it? It's a bit late to notice you're angry when you're shouting. It's a bit late to notice you're depressed because you can't get out of bed one morning. And that's our tragedy, because our skills, including our therapies, do not give us techniques to work on our mind until the wheels fall off. And that's just kind of ridiculous. No one does that with their car. No one does that with their house or their electricity or anything else. We have amazing techniques to maintain things, but not our mind. And even our therapy in the West, you don't go to a therapist when you're young and happy and healthy, or if I'm in with Fred and I'm in love with Fred and I think I better go to the therapist and learn some techniques to keep happy. No, you go to your therapist. I'm really happy right now. Can you give me some methods? Tell me to shut up and go home and wait till I want to kill my husband. That's ridiculous. That's like you go to the mechanic, can you please check my wheels? No, you don't have to check them. Wait till they fall off. That's ridiculous. But that's how we live our lives. No wonder we're all mad, you know. No wonder we all go crazy. So the reason, and we have to understand the reason is attachment. So when we understand it at this level, we'll be able to understand the 8 worldly dharmas. You know, it's a more sophisticated understanding of the 8 worldly, of attachment. That's all it is. Okay, so this attachment is this junkie in us. That's deep, deep instinctive in the mind. And the Buddha would tell us it's from eons of practicing it. So we can kind of even conceptualize that you come into this life fully programmed with whatever tendencies we've got, including the good ones. Don't just forget them. It's because we've practiced them before. Hardly rocket science. So, but attachment is so primordial. You see, even, okay, when we look at the Four Noble Truths, there are 3 kinds of suffering. This is in the high school. You learn this in high school. 3 levels of suffering. The first kind of suffering is when the bad things happen. The second kind of suffering is when the good things happen. The third kind of suffering is even more primordial. So I'll explain it in a minute. But this is all related to attachment. So what suffering is, what we call suffering of suffering, is simply when attachment doesn't get what it wants. And that's the first kind of suffering. And that's why we have a panic attack when someone's mean to us and they shout us, they insult us, or the car nearly runs us over, or something goes wrong at work. And then what arises, and all that is that's thwarted attachment. We don't even notice the attachment because it's a default assumption. We don't pay attention. It's only when attachment doesn't get what it wants that we even notice we've got attachment, because that's what suffering is. The bad thing happening is when attachment doesn't get what it wants. But okay, now how do you feel when attachment does get what it wants? That's what we call happiness. So if you wake up one morning and the weather's lovely and the house is still nice and clean, and no rats running around, and your wife is friendly and your body feels okay and the breakfast is tasty, we take that as a given that that's called life. But what that is indeed, it is the fruit of your past virtue. Every millisecond you have that's called happiness, every millisecond of something simply being nice, the breakfast being pleasant, that's the fruit of some virtuous action. Every millisecond of what's called happiness, pleasant feelings, is the fruit of a past virtue you created. Now, we never think that for a start. We just think, aren't we lucky? Aren't I lucky? I've got a lovely house. Aren't I lucky? I have money in the bank. Aren't I lucky? I've got lovely access to delicious food down the road. We take it for granted. That's taking it for granted. That means we don't understand it's the fruit of our past actions, and we don't understand emptiness. That's what it means. So it's a bit like you wake up in your life and you've got a delicious acre of garden, and you've got these amazing vegetables and roses and delicious things, and you take it for granted. You never think for 1 second that you've forgotten that you planted it. They are the result of your incredible hard work. So there's this kind of this arrogance and this expectation, this entitlement. That's attachment, because we're so blind we don't remember cause and effect, and we're so blind we don't see ego grasping. And so because attachment is getting what it wants, which is all we want in life, and we're going to get to the 8 worldly dharmas here, it's a junkie that only wants the nice things. So when we get the nice things, not remembering cause and effect, having no understanding of emptiness, we have this hubris. We have this sense of entitlement. You know, we feel kind of, aren't I fortunate? Oh, I'm so fortunate. What we really mean is, look at those poor people over there, and you feel guilty if you look at the poor people who don't have nice breakfast and have mean husbands who beat them. Oh, we don't know why that is. We just know, phew, what a relief, it's not me. Look at me. Look how lucky I am. Look how fortunate I am. This is unbelievable arrogance, you know, unbelievable ignorance from the Buddhist point of view. So it's just like forgetting that you planted that garden, that you worked unbelievably hard in that garden, and now you've got the fruits of it. So this arrogance of, look at these beautiful vegetables, and you eat them every day, never thinking you ought to create more. Because you also think they're permanent, they're going to be there forever. These are the delusions. The ego grasping believes everything's outside. Not understanding karma means everything's outside, and somehow, aren't I just lucky when the good things happen, and you take it for granted and eat it up like a vampire. And then also because you don't want to know about the things stopping. You don't want to know about not having money and not having husbands and not having nice houses. You can't bear to think about that. So we put another lie on top of it all, and we think it's permanent. We think it's going to last forever. Because it's there today, my veggies will be there forever. You eat them every day, you eat them up, but you keep thinking they're going to be there forever. It's just plain stupid ignorance. No sense of cause and effect. This is samsara. So the first kind of suffering is suddenly when the bad things happen. When the money runs out, when the husband leaves you, when the rats start coming eating your toes. The breakfast is horrible. That's the first kind of suffering. So we're tormented as, why is this happening to me? And it's so dreadful, I'm so suffering. But the second kind is the one we just described before, which is what we call happiness. That is the worst suffering. Because we don't realize, you see, the first kind of suffering is you're a junkie. The assumption is you're a junkie, okay? We're born in this realm of existence. This is according to the third kind of suffering. Buddha calls it all-pervasive suffering. So we're born as a result of attachment. We're born into this life with a body that is the product of attachment. That's why we have the 5 holes that demand feeding. We're living in a world, so we're born as a junkie with a junkie's body, which is attachment. And we live in a world that's made of heroin. So to survive, we know that the nature of the 5 senses is such that the attachment in us demands feeding. And that's the junk. So that's the all-pervasive suffering. We're born as a junkie, living in a world made of heroin. So there's no escape from it unless we do some incredible work. The second kind of suffering down the track, the grosser level of suffering is when you get the heroin. You think, aren't I lucky? I've got this heroin. I'm so fortunate. You eat it every day, because if you don't eat it one day, you go crazy. So we're maintaining this maniac level of supposed satisfaction by getting the fixes every day. Oh, aren't I lucky? I've got access to heroin every day. I can get what I want every day. That's not happiness. It's a nightmare. Look, and the proof of it is the second you don't get the heroin, the second the veggie isn't there, the second the thing goes wrong, the second a person is mean to you, panic attack. That's the grossest level of suffering. We live in this nightmare, Buddha says, and it's all driven by attachment. Driven by attachment. So the second kind of suffering is hard to see, and it sounds very cruel of Buddha, that even what we call happiness, that's getting the fix. So relatively speaking, it does trigger a pleasant feeling. Not having the fix, being accused and insulted, is very painful feeling. Definitely, it's an unpleasant feeling. Fact. But the pleasant feeling throws us. We get seduced by it. We're not realizing the causes of it. So attachment is so primordial. The thing is, initially it might make us depressed. You mean I'm not even allowed to have a nice piece of cake? We're thinking, you know. No, but see, we don't understand the point. Buddha's trying to get us to see that he has found methods to get happy feelings without relying on objects of the senses. That's it. It's very clear. He says he's found a better method to get happy feelings that aren't driven by getting what you want. Therefore, they're more stable. And that's his long-term goal. That's his long-term point. So to analyze and understand this kind of technology of this attachment, and this is the middle scope, all of this is completely informing all our practice. It has to. And we won't learn this if we don't read it and understand it and think about it and meditate on it. It won't just come like a vision to us. So the other thing to understand here, before we get to the deeper level, there's other way of presenting how attachment functions in a more pervasive way. We have to distinguish between what, happiness, the pleasant feelings, and attachment. We conflate them. We think they're the same thing. This is so important to understand. Because Buddha is very precise with his analysis of the mind. I always say this, the same level of clarity and precision and depth of analysis that we know you need just to make a cake, forget about something more sophisticated, is exactly the same clarity and precision and depth of analysis that we know we need, that Buddha says we need to unpack and unravel the mind. This is the key job of being a Buddhist. And you can't do it if you haven't learned it. You can't play Bach if you haven't learned Bach's theories. It's not possible. Or squeeze your brain, as Lama Yeshe puts it. So we have to distinguish. So in this model of the mind in Buddhism, like I mentioned many times, you know, you've got three categories of states of mind: the neurotic, deluded, over the top, delusional, disturbing, you know, afflictions, as the Buddhist teachings say, mental illnesses, which is a really good translation. Ego grasping, the neurotic sense of a self, which gives rise to attachment, which gives rise to aversion, and then gives rise to all the other dramas, the jealousy and all the other nonsense. So they're the neurotic ones. They're the ones that Buddha has found not at the core of our being. Whereas we in our Western culture, we know in neuroscience and psychology, we give equal status to those. We think they're a normal part of a normal person. So normal that we think you'd be weird if you didn't have anger, if you didn't have attachment, if you didn't have depression, you know. But Buddha's gone more subtle. He says, no, you can get rid of them, baby, which is pretty incredible, pretty radical. Then you've got the positive ones. They're our saving grace. They're our human qualities. You know, attachment and anger and jealousy, they're the qualities of the animals. They're the qualities of all the other suffering sentient beings. There's nothing special about them. But the human ones are the virtues, the intelligence, the clarity, the ability to see things from a different point of view, the ability to empathize with others. They are the human, they're our saving grace. And they are at the core of our being, and we want to perfect those. And Buddha says we can do that. The third category, I like to call them the mechanics of our mind. And it's an important point to get this. There are some that in their nature are deluded and cause you suffering and cause you to harm others. There are some in their nature that are valid, are virtuous, and cause you happiness and cause you to help others. That's the distinction between the first two lots. This third lot are different. They're neither virtuous nor non-virtuous, but they are necessary to cause you to function. So, you know, concentration, good memory, discrimination, an ability to distinguish every second between this and that. If they're working properly, you function well. But whether you're a murderer or a meditator, you both need those. So in that sense, they're not virtuous and not non-virtuous, but they're crucial states of mind. That's why mechanics is a kind of as a loose phrase. This is mine, but it's a good one to explain. So in that third category, this is curious now. Listen carefully. In that third category, there's a state of mind that's called feeling. This is so precise in the Buddhist teachings, not how we think in our world. And we're not referring here to emotions. We mean by a feeling. We mean by an emotion that affects the body, you know. This has nothing to do with that. It's Buddha would describe the nature of the way we are in the universe and how we're constructed. You've got only three kinds of feeling. There's one that's called a pleasant feeling. Another word for happiness. And there's clearly a spectrum of those, isn't there? You've got like a tiny pleasant feeling, or you have the most intense bliss and ecstasy and rapture in the universe. There's a spectrum. Pleasant feelings, happiness, in other words. And that's an interesting point, because when we say happiness, because we're so addicted to the external world being the cause of our happiness, that we conflate the experience of pleasure in the mind with the event. So, you know, if you're kind to me and I'm happy, I'm smiling. And someone says, Robina, what's happening? Oh, I'm so happy. Tell me about your happiness. And I'll describe the person who was kind to me. I'll describe the pleasant meal. I'll describe the weather. So that's what we think is happiness. We're so addicted to the external world that we think the word happiness refers to the external. No, that's only the trigger. Happiness is a state of mind, and it's a moment of pleasant feeling. It's technically the term, pleasant feeling. Then you've got the next category, and they're called unpleasant feelings. Another word for that is called suffering. So again, we conflate that with the external event, mistake. Because we're so addicted to believing the external is the cause, you know, so we think it is that. No, unpleasant feeling is called suffering. And again, there's a spectrum, the mildest unpleasant feeling to the most intense suffering, most intense pain, agony. Clearly. Then we have a third category called neutral feelings. Well, I'm not interested in those right here. We leave them alone, okay? So all we think about it, all we care about is the pleasant feelings and avoiding the unpleasant ones. And if you think about it, that's how we spend our lives. And what's the part of us that does the job? That's the attachment's job. And because we are samsaric and are in this dualistic existence because of ego grasping, and we have this sense of a me here and the world out there, and because we have the 5 senses, and because we're driven by those, then we naturally assume the external world, the things that I see, taste, touch, and smell, they are the cause of happiness. So due to our past karmic connections with certain activities, you know, whether you're born as a fisherman, or whether you're born as a torturer, or whether you're born as a musician, or whether you're born as a loving, kind person, they're just your habits, and they are the things that we pursue in order to get pleasant feelings. So if you're born with a tendency to fish, you're going to see the fishing. It will trigger very pleasant feelings the very first second you see the fishing. And this is the tragedy. The extent of your habit to kill will equal the extent of the pleasant feelings. So naturally, because we think the pleasant feelings come from fishing, this is the tragedy, then in the next millisecond will arise attachment, which will make it look delicious and paint a divine picture. And then all these work together and you keep going fishing. Why? Oh, because I got pleasant feelings. It's cause of happiness. Of course it must be good. I get happy. This is what samsara is. So what we might go around killing fish or torturing people, we'll go, you know, eat the cake and get the money or do the thing or get the boyfriend, have the pleasant sounds or smells or tastes. So because these habits are so primordial, because the habit of past karmic connection with something, you meet it again, it instantly triggers pleasant feelings. And again, the strength of your karmic connection equals the strength of the pleasant feeling. And because we are junkies and only want pleasant feeling, the deduction is, of course, fishing is the cause of happy feelings. And attachment kicks in and helps us, it colludes in that whole lie by making the fishing look delicious. If I've got karmic connection with Fred, I'm attached to boys. So I'm looking for happiness. I'm looking for boys. Every second I'm out there with my discrimination and my checking out the boys. And one shape comes along, karmic connection, instant pleasure arises, instant attachment takes over. And within 1 second, you've planned your entire life because now you see it as all permanent. So these are all the way, all these delusions kick in and can collude together to mislead us. No wonder we all go crazy. So pleasant feeling is what I'm getting at here, is not in its nature attachment. Attachment is a delusion and a lie. Pleasant feeling is a simple fact. It's neither negative nor positive. It is what it is. It's a pleasant feeling. It is that, but it's not a virtue or a non-virtue. So attachment is in the deluded category and feeling is in the neutral. So but the thing is, the relationship between them is intimate. Attachment, it's its job to find the object due to our past karmic connection, such that when we get contact with it, pleasant feelings are triggered. And that's where we lie to ourselves and we think the chocolate cake is the cause of the happiness, that Fred is the cause of the pleasant feelings, that the killing of the fish is the cause of the pleasant feelings. Not true. Wrong analysis. So we have to know that. So we learn all this supposedly in the middle scope, in high school, we become our own therapists, learn to meditate and learn to understand what the hell the mind is. Vanessa's got a question. What's Vanessa's question?
Would you like me to read it out loud?
Yep.
From Vanessa, thank you, Vanessa. Is that feeling when you get butterflies in the stomach from meeting someone a delusion? It seems so acceptable by society's standard that it's normal.
Thank you. It's a good question, Vanessa. That is because the guy, a fisherman who's got connection with fishing, would get butterflies in their stomach. That's the physical manifestation of the, okay, it's helpful to think of this. I'll use the Tibetan medical analysis, which is coming from the Vajrayana explanation of who we are and how we're constructed. Okay, so we've got gross body and gross mind, and that's the sensory, the gross level, the tip of the iceberg, the one we live with, the body and the sensory consciousnesses. Then we have subtle mind and subtle body, and the subtle body is made up of, this is the Tibetan medical system coming from the Vajrayana. We've got 72,000 subtle channels, a subtle nervous system. This is similar to the Chinese one, you know, the acupuncture one, similar style. This is the Vajrayana. 72,000 subtle channels coursing all through our entire body, and through those channels are coursing all the different prana, the different wind energies. This used to be the way we talk about health 1,000 years ago in our culture, you know. 800 years ago. It's a Tibetan medical one. And it's a very sophisticated understanding of the different kind of winds. And within and coursing through those channels, inextricably linked to those wind energies. Inextricably linked to those wind energies. This is a subtle physical level, is our subtle level of mind, which is our mental states, all our emotions, anger and love and compassion and kindness and all that. So now, because of strong attachment energy, attachment is a delusion, it's connected to its own wind energies. So there you are, you meet Fred. Due to past karma, there's strong connection, like you just know you've met him before. You just like to feel like you're coming home. That's past karmic connection. You've got some history together. And because it's virtuous karma together, he'll appear very delicious to you, that, you know, and he'll treat you nicely. And you'll, and butterflies in the stomach is simply the wind energies connected to your attachment going a bit berserk. That's all. Like the same with when you get angry. Look at the storm in your body when you're angry. The same, because the anger is connected to those wind energies, and it's like this violence inside you. Your body's extremely raging. It's exactly the same. So the butterflies in the stomach, as we call it, is just attachment energy triggering those wind energies based upon the karmic connection with that person. And whether you're a torturer, I mean, you're a torturer, you've got a habit to torture from past lives, you definitely have butterflies in your stomach. Or the fisherman. I remember reading about one guy, Australian journalist, years ago, he's dead now, Robert Hughes, used to be the arts writer for Time magazine for like 40 years. He was completely in love with fishing. He wrote about, because he was very good with words, he was a poet and a writer. So he wrote in this kind of blissful language about the first time he went trout fishing. It was like a cosmic experience. So in our world, we think that's horrifying and we can't think about it. But that's because you've got a strong karmic connection with killing. A powerful karma from killing. And in this life, the moment he met fishing again, because of the strength of his karmic connection, that equaled the strength of his pleasant feelings. This is the tragedy. It triggered those pleasant feelings, definitely, he said it was a cosmic experience. And then attachment kicks in and makes it look divine. You can't see the suffering. He talked about one time the way how he killed his first crab. And it was like so dramatic, stabbing and cutting. It was blissful for him because he had the karmic connection with killing. I mean, we think people are mentally ill like that, but that is mental illness. It's karma, attachment, and pleasant feeling, all working together. And we're completely sucked into that analysis. And it's totally mistaken analysis. Don't think of it as fundamentalist. It's just a wrong analysis, Buddha says. Technologically speaking, it's a wrong analysis. It's a very powerful point. That's why, because Vanessa, and this is the tragedy. I mean, we don't want to torture and kill people, but look at us with just the chocolate cake. We can't resist it. God Almighty, you know. Isn't it? We can see this. That's because we're hungry. Attachment is this emotional hunger, and it drives all this process. Looking desperately for the object that we've got a karmic connection with that will trigger pleasant feelings. You know, and when we meet it, we think we found heaven. And that, for my friend in prison on death row in Kentucky, as my friend Mitch said, who's a Buddhist, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. Well, fishermen think of fishing all the time. Whatever you're attached to, you think of it all the time. Look at our pathetic minds. We can't stop thinking about food. I go to bed at night thinking about, I don't have dinner, but in the morning I'm doing my practice, and I promise you, I'm anticipating my breakfast. I promise you. Because that's what attachment is. It's in your mind all the time. There are things you're attached to. Okay, if you're a bodhisattva, love and compassion are in your mind all the time. Well, way to go, you know. At least we're so fortunate. We do decent jobs. We've got a job that helps people. At least our attachment can be mixed with that, and we can do a good job. Because we are attached, but we mix it with our love and kindness. That's fantastic. We look forward to going to work. You want to help those kids. You want to help those poor people, whatever it is. Amazing. At least we use our attachment in a skillful way until we've got rid of it. So, we're junkies for pleasant feelings. This is called wanting happiness. And it seems so reasonable and normal. And it is. Buddha says it is. Everyone has the wish to be happy, and everybody has the wish not to suffer. And that is what drives every action we do. And now we're getting to the subtle level of these eight worldly dharmas. So what they are is attachment at this kind of more pervasive level, a way of presenting, like 4 pairs. So this attachment drives us, even drives our goodness, but our goodness at least is saving grace. It's okay. So there's a different order sometimes, but the first one is basically bare bones, this constant attachment assumption that when I get what I want, when I get when I get nice things, that's what happiness is. So attachment is that assumption. And then the millisecond, so it's this constant craving, even though when the house is pleasant, the breakfast is pleasant, the wife is there, the weather's good, and you wake up and you don't think there's any state of mind. You just think you're enjoying, oh, I'm enjoying the pleasant surroundings. What we're not noticing is attachment is there, it's fierce in our mind. And because it's getting what it wants every second, the pleasant experience, we don't notice that the attachment is there. We don't notice we're driven by a junkie, and it's very fragile. Because look what happens if you taste your coffee and it's the wrong taste. Look what happens if suddenly the noise is too loud, or the smell comes, or the weather starts to change. Suddenly the mind is distressed, and the attachment stops getting what it wants, and then it becomes unpleasant feelings, and then we freak out. So this attachment, in the way they talk about in the 8 body dharmas, is eight levels of attachment. There's the constant attachment that only wants the nice things, and then the millisecond, and check this, the millisecond that attachment doesn't get, like you're expecting your coffee. Like I know when I used to drink coffee, and I'm anticipating a nice coffee again one day, I'll have one day, I'll go to Starbucks, and I knew exactly what I wanted. Ristretto, double or triple shot, depending on the size, has to be 180 degrees, no foam, thank you very much, flat white as we call it in Australia. And I knew exactly the details of exactly what I wanted. And of course, Starbucks pride you on giving you exactly what you want. So that's an obvious, more volatile level of attachment. I make sure I tell you what I want, and I'm expecting it, aren't I? I'm expecting it. And then when I don't get, if it's only 170 degrees, I will instantly notice. And what's that? That's attachment not getting what it wants. And then I'll be polite. Oh, sweetheart, would you mind giving me a few more, put the temperature in again, you know? I'll be polite about it. But that's attachment not getting what it wants. So when it does get what it wants, that's called a happy feeling. And aren't you lucky? Oh, wow, everything's perfect. But we're so unstable. So what happens is, in the way they're talking about the 8 body dharmas, this attachment that just only wants the pleasant feeling, never stopping, never stopping, never stopping. And the millisecond it doesn't get what it wants, the attachment changes into making it change. So my attachment will first of all, my attachment is getting what it wants, if it gets what I want. And if it doesn't, then I'll go to this girl and tell her, please change it and get me what I want. And I'll be all polite and sweet. So attachment is getting what it wants, craving to get what I want, and then when it doesn't, the attachment kicks in to try and get what I want. So in other words, attachment never stops, never stops, never stops, just to get what we think as pleasant feelings, you know, happiness. The next level, I can say it in a different way later. I think I said it a bit unclearly. So the next one, the attachment to pleasant sounds, they say, but it seems to me that's to do, or getting things, attachment to getting nice things. So when you get nice things, that's attachment getting what it wants. And then when you don't get nice things, or you get things that aren't nice, then attachment changes to try to change that. It never stops, never stops. The next two are very similar. The next lot, attachment to hearing nice sounds with your name in them. Nice words. This is huge. This is absolutely enormous. And we know the horror, the terrifying, the pain of hearing words where your name is in it and you're not seen as good, you know. Even the slightest criticism is beyond distressing. Beyond distressing. So attachment immediately shifts to trying to get the nice sounds. So when your attachment is there when you get the nice sounds, and when you get the ugly sounds, attachment kicks in to make sure you get the nice sounds again. So it never stops. But the last lot, and there are different orders for this, and this seems to be the most primordial. They call it attachment to reputation. We think, well, that sounds silly. I don't have a reputation. But what it means is most primordial, so normal, we don't even give it a name in our culture. We just think it's normal. Is we are hungry, simply speaking, to be liked. Look at the suffering in our world, and we will see this nakedly. Look at the suffering. What do you think loneliness is? Loneliness is you're in a house on your own. Meaning there's no one there to reflect yourself back to you. There's no one there saying, Robina, I love you. Robina, please have this. Robina, you're a kind person. And what does that say about us? What does that say about us that we have? It says about us, and this is the point about attachment. Attachment really is a symptom of a really seriously low self-esteem, self-loathing, unhappy person. That's what the symptom is. So attachment is this constant craving because there's no sense of that I have any value. There's a feeling I have no value. Unless someone says, Robina, you're a nice person. And it's like, look at the bliss. If you think of relationships, so they're called sexual, I don't think the sex is the main thing at all. It's the craving to be seen and heard and validated. That's what they mean by attachment to reputation. And everybody in the universe, if you have ego grasping, you have this sense of a dualistic self, which is me and them. And that means we have this attachment. It is the deepest, most primordial. If we look into our minds, this is the hardest one to see. We can see attachment to cake, that's easy. But to see the one that is always this voice constantly there, this assumption that I'm not anyone and I need to be hearing the praise one as well, but I need to be seen and heard and validated. Then I'm a real person. I think that's the main part when you're in love with somebody. Think about it. It's not just a sex. It's somebody looking at you with blissful eyes, thinking you are divine. I mean, that is the pleasure that is triggered when someone simply validates us, likes us. That's what lights us up. That's the sign of this deepest attachment. This is very depressing initially because we just think it sounds like wonderful. So in other words, when we don't have anybody there, we're depressed, we're lonely, we're nothing, we're nobody. We need to be fed. It's almost like we need people to be a mirror that we can look into and they reflect us back to us. That's why if they don't like us, it is like hell on earth. The nightmare of not being liked. Now, this is not throwing the baby out for the bathwater and thinking, therefore, we're all just full of attachment. We are, but it's also valid if you are a loving person and you see a person who's lonely, you know why they're lonely, because they've got attachment. When you know that for yourself, you know then you see the person who's lonely, the sad person, the old person, the young person, the person who's been abused in their life. Their suffering is real, but you know why they're suffering. It's karma and attachment and anger and delusions. That's why we all suffer. You have a loving heart and you reach out and you do love them and you do look that little girl in the eye and you do tell her she's beautiful and she will light up. And now that's the point. If we have only got to look at some people in our world, with our own selves maybe, if we're so hungry for other people to love us, we never think I should love them. We only think people should love me. That shows the depth of our loneliness and our attachment, and we wouldn't know how to get happiness because we just depend totally on someone else doing it. That is real suffering for people. It is real suffering. But that's the reason for it. So we should be loving and kind. And if let's say you're a good mother, and you've got this little girl, and she's fragile and gets upset easily. She's got attachment. She's got anger. Love her, but you be a wise mother. You give her lots of love when she needs it. You tell her off when she needs it. So and hopefully if she's a little girl that will grow up properly, she will take the love from her mother and not just use it like a vampire to feed her greed, to be seen as a nice girl, because that will never help her. You use that love from someone else to help you grow yourself. So in other words, we've got to distinguish between the attachment and the virtues, the delusions and the virtues. And this is very tricky. And if you can't see it in your own mind, you don't know how to help other people. We can see different people. Let's say two people who are poor, who had bad lives. One of them, she's really greedy. I'm not being horrible, because this is why we suffer. She's got this constant, no sense of self-worth, none whatsoever. You give her lots of love and she greedily takes it, but she doesn't know how to use it, and she still feels she's nobody. No matter how much you love her, how many times you tell her she's beautiful, how many things you give her, she keeps wanting more. That's because of the suffering of attachment. But another person is also sad, also lonely, also been brutalized. You give her a little bit of love and she is able to use that as grist for her mill and help her turn herself into a beautiful person and then help others. See, the distinction every time here is the difference between the delusions and the virtues. That's not how we think in our culture. It's much more subtle, you know. Two people could be suffering. Two people could have a terrible, terrible parents and get abused. But one doesn't suffer so much. That's because she has not got so much attachment or anger. The one who suffers most is the one with most attachment and most anger and never lets go and always blames. No matter how much you love them, it's never enough. Look at your own relationships. You know, you've got this deep well of bottomless pit of not being enough, not being good enough, not being lovable, and you hate yourself, you cut yourself. This is this depth of dissatisfaction that comes from attachment, that I am nothing, and we even harm ourselves. It's because of attachment. The sins are odd to us. So then you know in a relationship, no matter how much that person tells you they love you, no matter how much that person gives you and is kind to you, it's like water off a duck's back because you've got so much hunger, so much neediness, you don't know how to use that love. Whereas a person who's got more self-worth, they're sad and lonely, they've been beaten up, but they've got this kind of kindness. They've got some love. They don't have so much attachment, so they can heal themselves very quickly. And they can use your love to help them nourish and grow. And that's why we have to have the wisdom to know where a person's at so we know how to help each other. Are we communicating here, people? It's very subtle, but the basis is knowing your own mind. Good, Wendy. We've got to know our own mind first. It's impossible. If you want to be a brilliant acupuncturist to heal people, if you had that acupuncture knowledge, you just look at a person and you can see exactly their health. That's exactly what your skill is. But if you don't have acupuncture, they're staring you in your face. They're sick, but you can't help them because you can't even see it. So you've got to know it first yourself. You've got to learn it first yourself, your own mind, because we're all carved from the same stone, there's different variations. Some have more anger, some have less. Some have more pride, some have less. Some have more love, some have less. But we've got the same states of mind, different variations. So this is attachment. So the 8 Worldly Dharma is just a way of presenting the pervasiveness of this hunger for pleasant feelings and freaking out and hunger and try and then get hunger to remove yourself from the unpleasant feelings. The hunger for getting nice things and then the hunger to stop not getting nice things. The hunger to hear nice words and then the hunger to stop. The hunger to stop the unnice words, and then the hunger to be seen and loved and approved of, and then the hunger to stop that. It's constant attachment. And this is what underpins, given that we're all samsaric, join the universe. We're talking the dogs and the monkeys and the ants as well. And theirs is 1,000,000 times heavier than ours. Because we have access to our virtues and they don't. This is the pervasiveness of attachment. And it underpins, because we want pleasant feelings, we'll do whatever we can to get pleasant feelings. And that'll end us causing us to harm other people. Of course it does. We want to get nice things, so we be nice to persons so we can get a nice thing. We want to be hearing nice words, so we'll manipulate people to be nice to them so they'll say nice things back. And we want to be seen as a good girl, so we'll do everything we can to make people think that we're a good girl. So we're constantly living in this fear of wanting to get at what attachment wants because we can't bear the pain of not getting what it wants. And it causes us to manipulate everything and everybody. So we're living in lies. And the irony is, the tragedy is, as much as you'll get nice things, pleasant words, nice pleasant feelings and good reputation, you'll still be empty. You'll still be nothing, because attachment is a bottomless pit. It can't be satisfied. This is hard to see. We have to prove it to ourselves. Time for some questions, maybe, Mary. It's a summary of these 8, a summary of attachment. And we should have compassion for ourselves. Don't put ourselves down. Don't criticize. Don't be guilty. That's just demented. Have incredible compassion, for ourselves. Oh my God, I didn't realize, Any questions, Mary?
I don't see any questions in the chat box. Anyone questions?
Anyone questions? I have a question. Good, Wendy. Go, sweetheart. Go, Wendy.
Hi. So you spoke about taking the good that people reflect, right? Like that a mother could put good words, and there's one child who could take that and then build upon themselves.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, Wendy. Yes.
So
yes.
Is there, like, I totally get this, the whole thing of needing to be seen and approved of, and
yes,
the
Wendy,
attachment to that.
That's right.
So could you speak more about how one can go about building? It's like, I get that that's the attachment, but what is the other way to build up the goodness?
That's virtue. That's coming from virtue. So,
to fill the pot in a good way.
Yeah, okay. So if we're in a relation, so let's just say we have a relationship, Wendy, whatever kind of relationship, it doesn't matter. Whether you're my boss, whether you're my lover, whether you're my boy, sister, whatever, it's the same kind of thing. Because all our relationships, if we're very deluded, they'll be based upon this attachment, And then, so the thing is, because if you see the attachment part, it's the hungry part. It's this little girl in there who doesn't feel enough, so she's hungry. So if I know you like me, how people, what do we say in the West in relationship? Codependent. It's a really nice phrase. That's attachment on both sides running rampant. And it's so subtle. We've been doing it since we're a little girl. So well, I notice, even when I'm a little girl, Wendy, and I'm, you know, and it's normal to have this attachment. I'm not talking about the virtuous part here. I'm talking about the deluded part. So there I am with this hunger for mummy to, you know, I'm a little baby and I do something funny and I see that mummy laughs at me. And I'm not stupid. I can see that she's happy. So then I almost already, your little instinctive little ego knows that's what worked. So you do it again later and you're expecting that same result. So if you live in a codependent relationship, that's all you're doing. You're feeding each other's attachment like vampires. And people call it love. People call it love. That's just feeding the attachment. Because we see, what we don't understand is that pleasant feelings, which are what are triggered when you praise me in your codependent way, and as you're praising me in our neurotic relationship, you're looking at me in the eye, making sure that I respond in a lovely way. And you go, oh, phew, that worked again. Then I'll respond in a lovely way. Then I'll think, then you smile back at me and think, oh, phew, that worked again. We're living in this dreadful kind of nervous situation where each desperately trying to praise each other, stroke each other, pat each other on the back because we want to get the response of you being kind to me. That's the desperation of this attachment. So then we can never be authentic. We can never give real love. It looks like love. It's got the guise of love, but it's riddled with this rubbish, disgusting attachment, you know? And that's what happens when we're in love with people. It's kind of grotesque in a way. I'm not trying to be horrible. But if two people who are loving, who've got more love and compassion than attachment, they will still have attachment energy. They'll still give each other bliss, but they'll be more clear. They'll be less neurotic. They'll be less needy. They'll be more clear with each other and more genuine and more easygoing. That's the virtue, love and compassion and kindness. But it's really hard to distinguish between them because when things are driven by attachment, it looks like love. It looks like incredible love, but it's not. So that's where, if we're trying to be authentic is a good word. Authentic means to be valid. Authentic doesn't mean just say what you feel and blurt it out and harm you. But authentic means, you know, we've each got attachment and we're both practicing, then we will work on our mind and not be so needy for you to love me. So if you come home from work and you're grumpy, so if I'm fully full of attachment and yearning and craving for you to get home, and I'm yearning and craving for you to get the lovely looks again, and then you come in the door grumpy, what do you think I'm going to do? I'll take it completely personally. I'll be completely insulted. I'll panic depending on my tendency. I'll get jealous, or I'll get grumpy in return, or she doesn't love me anymore. That's because of attachment. Because you dared to be a normal person and look grumpy. So if I haven't got much attachment, I will recognize you coming in the door. I'll know you had a hard day. I'll give you a break, and I won't take it personally, which is what this greedy attachment is. So that's how the difference. So then you'll be more spacious with each other. I'll be able to see with attachment, I only see you through the lenses of my needs. It's really quite desperate. But it's so pervasive, we just don't see it. Whereas if I'm becoming less attached, I'll sort of recognize you're a separate person in a good way. I'll give you respect. I'll allow you your space to be grumpy because I know you've got your own trips and I won't think you're being grumpy with me. You understand? So I'll leave you alone. So that, you know, we understand all this. We have different words for it in the West, but this is because of attachment and aversion. And the neediness, attachment is this junkie that is hungry. And that's why when you're in love with somebody, it's marvelous. No one's doubting it's marvelous. It is marvelous because it triggers these blissful feelings due to karmic connection and due to we're supporting each other and making each other happy, marvelous. But the real suffering is when when the attachment starts to wane in the relationship. Let's say it's a sexual one with Fred or something. I've got Fred, let's say. That the bliss, we think the bliss comes from the sex. No, the bliss comes from Fred thinking I'm an angel. Looking at me with his divine eyes, it wakes me up. That's why people are so happy when people praise each other. I mean, there's goodness there as well. So if I can use that love and see it as love, and then when he's grumpy, I won't take it personally. Or the other one is, let's say the attachment starts to wane, which it all does, and the sex starts to get less, then the pain, especially when you see him and he walks in the door from home, from work, Fred, and he no longer looks at you with loving eyes. He no longer wants you to hug him in your arms. He no longer wants to look at you. That's the devastation. Not because of the lack of sex, it's because he's no longer feeding that hunger to be seen. That's the worst pain we have. That's the nightmare of thwarted attachment in relationships. You understand what I'm saying? So it's learning to distinguish between attachment and then love. Love is a sense, a connection with you, as empathetic. It sees you as who you are. It's not seeing through the lenses of my needs. It's seeing you as you are. It delights in your happiness. It recognizes your qualities, and I'm not being affected. I'm not on a puppet on a string with you. That's virtues are like that. Virtues are more clear, more connected, more appropriate, more valid, less. They're not lying. They're more clear. Attachment is like a liar. Anger is a liar, and they're totally self-centered, but it's hard to see the difference. You understand? Okay. Any more questions? Have a 5-minute break if you like. No more questions. It's very, people maybe you're stunned, because it's stunning. We all recognize. I mean, Buddha's just pointing out the mind, you know, but he's pointing it out not for us to feel guilty, because that's just another delusion. We should be like, wow, now I've realized. Now I know why I've got diabetes, because I've been eating this stupid sugar. I thought it was such lovely food, but now we're seeing what it is. So we should be getting a revelation for us and be so delighted, so happy to know what's been causing us suffering. Of course it's painful. Of course it's painful. So painful. As my friend who's a therapist said, it's having our hands on our own shit. Not a joke, you know. So have a 5-minute breather, okay? It'll give you a 5-minute break, then back again, okay?
Thank you.
This is where we see this in the framework of the compassion wing, and this is all taught in the framework of wanting to continue to rip out your delusions, but now it's because you can't bear the suffering of others and you know you have to help them. In the first level, you control your body and speech. There's no wiggle room. Then you start to control your mind. It's for your sake, so you'd stop this garbage. Now you continue to work on your mind. That never stops. But now, because your compassion is growing and growing, and you're seeing more and more clearly, based upon you're seeing your own mind more clearly, that everybody is in the same boat. And I have no choice but to help. So the reference here for ripping out the delusion, ripping out attachment, is because it's preventing you from helping others. Of course, we don't have that level of compassion maybe, but we can think about like that. So that's when we realize the reason I can't help others enough is because I'm still stuck in my own delusions. So this is the emphasis of still working on your mind. The job of working on your mind never changes from here to Buddhahood. So the antidote to this one, that's where this discussion of transforming problems into happiness, they call it. Now we get that. We all know in our lives that when bad things happen, if we're brave enough, we can use it as a marvelous opportunity, and then good can come from it. We hear so many stories like this, you know, all the time. Look at COVID-19, the number of stories of good people, the goodness coming out of people in this bad situation. So we can turn bad situations into good. This is this idea of transforming problems into happiness. We kind of get it. It's like seeing everything as a challenge, not as a problem. And the key to success in our ability to see a challenge and not a problem is less attachment and less anger, and is understanding the pervasiveness of this attachment. Because right now, the millisecond an unpleasant feeling arises, that second, and we think they're the same, anger comes, aversion, distress, unhappiness. You know, this is where we have to understand attachment and aversion. The millisecond attachment gets what it wants, pleasant feeling is arising. The millisecond we don't get what attachment wants, that millisecond unpleasant feeling arises. And when unpleasant feeling arises, and then that's what anger kicks in. Okay, look at the spectrum of anger, of aversion. The bare bones are attachment and aversion. Attachment is this junkie that every time it sees something nice, we go, oh, that's nice, and we go towards it. The second it doesn't get what it wants, aversion kicks in. That's the bare bones state of mind. And we go, and you go away from it. You resist it. We push it away. So strong aversion is violent anger. Mild aversion is irritated, annoyed, upset, frustrated. And we spend most of our lives in that middling, muddled feeling of annoyed, upset, frustrated. Nothing's going right. You don't kill people. You don't want to kill yourself yet, but you're in the middle between violent anger and profound depression. They're all expressions of aversion. And aversion is when the attachment doesn't get what it wants. So that's the practice, that's the kicking, that's the second that practice begins. So what are you learning to do? As Lama Zopa says, you're learning to see problems like, you're learning to like problems like you like ice cream. So this seems demented. If you're in the lower scope, if you're in the high school level and you're in a relationship where you're being abused every day and you're completely depressed, your job is you're not ready yet to see it as good. You need to leave that damn person. You need to get the hell out of that situation because she's such a victim. But if you're already advanced in doing this work and you're on the compassion wing and you're totally focused on developing more love, more compassion, more ability to help others, more wisdom, then you are happy to see your delusions. And you're happy that when you don't get that right coffee, you catch your mind that second and you go, that's great. I just purified my attachment by not getting what it wants. And I decide I'm going to like that coffee at 170 degrees instead of thinking, I want better coffee. That's that second that practice starts. That is the miracle of practice. That's what transforming problems means. But that means you've got to catch your mind. We don't catch our mind until you want to kill somebody. That's our problem. You've got to catch it the second it arises. And before it starts to grow, then you nip it in the bud and you say, no, that cake is good. I ordered chocolate cake. No, you get carrot cake. You see it. Your expectations are thwarted. You're expecting chocolate cake, right? You see the carrot cake. That second, instead of being annoyed, you go, that's great. I love carrot cake. And the waitress says, is that nice cake? You say, it's lovely cake. Thank you. That's the practice. That's the practice. But that means you've got to see your mind. And we don't notice our mind until you want to kill yourself or kill someone else. So that's why the practice in the middle scope in high school is that focusing on your mind, seeing your delusions for yourself. Then you can begin to see it in relation to helping others. And you'll want to transform. You'll want to, and that's the opportunity. And what's the benefit of that? You're not being a martyr. By seeing something bad, not getting what you want to see it as good sounds like you're being a martyr. No, you're smashing your delusions. That's the whole job you're trying to do. That's why you want to become a Buddha, because you want to have compassion. Of course, that's hard for us. But it also is the cause of happiness. Now, that's why my friends in prison are such amazing examples. When we can start to see the Buddha's simple point, that it's the anger or the hurt or the jealousy or the depression or the worry or the fear or the anxiety itself that is the pain. We think it's the thing that caused it is the problem. So we keep trying to change the thing that caused it. No, Buddha says you can change the thing, the mind itself. That's the power of, that's Buddha's teachings from A to Z, It's brilliant. And why should you? Not to be a martyr, because guess what, honey? That'll make you have happy feelings again. I mean, if you've got no choice and you've got to have stuck with carrot cake, what is the benefit of being angry with it? What is the benefit of thinking this is ugly? Okay, it's going to kill you. Don't eat it. But what is the benefit to you? There isn't any. So the only benefit, the only thing to do is if you can't change the cake, start enjoying the carrot cake. See it differently. And like we talked on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it was, about emptiness, as His Holiness said, when asked what's the way to apply emptiness in daily life, guess what he said? See something from another point of view. That's exactly the point. So not only are you attacking attachment when you decide the carrot cake is good, you're attacking ego grasping, and guess what? The result will be you'll be content. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So changing your mind is a method for you to get happy. It's very simple. But here, the framework is you want to change your mind. You want to rip out delusions because you're desperate to help others. I mean, it sounds kind of weird to us, but that's the bodhisattvas, So what's holding you back is your delusion. So of course you want to smash them. So for the bodhisattvas, that's why so let's go through the 8 verses of mind training, that amazing, outrageous series of 8 verses by the Tibetan yogi Langri Tangpa back in the 10th or 11th century or something, Atisha's disciple, maybe 12th century. That's the framework in which the 8 Moldy Dharmas is taught. It's a more dramatic way of seeing your mind and wanting to rip out the delusions. Not for your sake. Of course it's for your sake, but it's what's it's sort of like you want to be the best doctor, but you haven't got enough knowledge yet. So you've got to desperately study all those new courses so you can be the best doctor. Well, here, the best way to become the best doctor is rip out your delusions, because then you get wisdom. And then your compassion grows limitlessly. That's the point. It's a very specific way to see it. A very particular approach. I hope we're communicating here. That's why it's so important to see the levels of teachings. They're taught at different levels, You've got to know where you're at. In other words, if you're in an abusive relationship, you're full of self-pity, you're full of victim mentality, and you're paralyzed and full of anger and rage, and it's all just suffocated, and you haven't got a clue what's going on, you don't know yourself, your job is not to transform problems. You wouldn't know how to. It's not possible. Not possible. You've got to get some self-respect and get the hell out of that maniac's house. Have some courage. I'm out of here, baby. you know. That's the tragedy. I mean, I joke, but I'm not joking. There'd be more women on the planet if that happened. 40% of all women on this planet who get murdered are murdered by the bloke in the same bed. And this is not criticizing men. This is just showing the depth of our victim mentality, the depth of our suffering, the depth of our attachment and our anger and our fears and hopelessness and blame and rage. Not blaming victims. All of us are victims. All of us are victims. That's what samsaric means. We're so addicted to blaming the person. We think, why should I change? They should change. That's insanity. It's just demented, you know. That's why my friends in prison are such outrageous examples. They know they don't have the luxury of choice. Their backs are against the wall, living in these garbage dumps, no end in sight, around a bunch of psychos, because yes, there are some psychos in prison. There are probably more psychos out of prison. Never mind. They don't have the choice, the luxury to change their situation. But the ones I know who are practicing, they know they can change their mind. That's the miracle. So let's look at these 8 verses. To find them first. I remember them roughly, so that the essence of the meaning of them, I'll get that, you know. They're pretty outrageous. And this is the compassion wing. This is okay, let's look at the compassion wing. What's the aim here? So the wisdom wing is where you put yourself together. You recognize you're sick of suffering. You stop creating negative karma. You work on your own mind. And what's the result of this? They call it renunciation, but it sounds a bit depressing. Oh, I'm so renounced. You sound like a bored person. No, you have no idea what you'd be like if you had renunciation. You'd be very blissful. You'd be very content in yourself. You wouldn't be dissatisfied. You wouldn't always be craving for something. You'd be very content, very fulfilled, and naturally very loving and very compassionate. Naturally. I mean, naturally, you know, naturally. That's the result of working on your body, speech, and mind. You are the beneficiary. When it says renunciation, it sounds forbidding, like you've given up everything. No, you're giving up suffering and its causes. You will be more fulfilled and more content. You'll be joyful. You'll begin to taste your own potential. This is incredible. They don't say it like that, but that's the point. So the main emphasis in all of that work, you know, it's almost like you're keeping away from other people. You're leaving people alone. It's not much about love and compassion yet. It's all about knowing your own mind intimately, knowing yourself well, and you are wanting to get rid of suffering because you are up to here with suffering. You know your own suffering. You know the causes and you're going to change. That's incredible self-respect, you know. Now you and because you're subduing your body, speech, and mind now, you're naturally, inexorably opening yourself and connecting to others. You're breaking down the barriers between self and other. That wasn't the overt reason, but that's what's happening. You see others more and more. You reach out to others more and more. You realize we're all in the same boat. Everybody is a result of the law of cause and effect. Everybody is causing their own suffering, and everybody doesn't realize it. So there's this nightmare of looking around for what are the causes of my suffering and blaming everybody else and looking for the cause of their happiness. All out there, it's like we're demented, you know. But you begin to realize this for yourself. And you go, my God, the whole world is like a nightmare. Look at the suffering. Because you're more courageous, because you're more content, because you understand karma now. You don't have much anger. You don't have much fears. You're an amazing person. So now naturally you're going to continue to do this work. And now you go to the compassion wing. And now your goal is to achieve this bodhicitta, this outrageous state of mind. Bodhicitta, awakening, that's the culmination. Renunciation is the culmination of the first 2 scopes. Then the next one is the culmination of the next one is this next phase of practice is this bodhicitta, this outrageous, I mean, there's nothing equivalent in an ordinary materialist world. You'll hear about in the great saints, people who sacrifice their lives for others, who only work for others. We hear about this. We see, I mean, to levels of, when you are a bodhisattva, when you have got bodhicitta, there really would be, this is how you'd be, there'd be no longer the normal thought of the ordinary I. This is almost impossible to believe. This is the level to which we can accomplish this amazing bodhicitta. It's the culmination of incredible compassion and love and all the other qualities. So, bodhicitta, I mean, technically it's translated from Sanskrit as awakening thought. I mean, how boring, you know? I mean, it's okay, we get used to the term, but somehow, for some reason, this bodhicitta very, very rarely gets translated. Just have to learn the meaning of it. So what it is, how you'd be, is there'd be no longer, you've made this complete shift now. And this is not something occasionally. This is something you aim for and you grow and you achieve and accomplish, not just have flashes of it when it's real. So you'd have made this paradigm shift in your mind when now only others are what exists for you. It's like you're a mother and the entire universe are your children, and you define yourself as you know your job. A mother knows her job by definition. When she sees her baby suffering, when she sees her child drowning, let's say, she'll have compassion. We'll go into these better. We'll define them more clearly. So compassion is also a thought like attachment, but it's completely related to others. Compassion is a virtue in its nature because it's based in interdependence and it's related to others. You see another person suffering and your heart goes out. Whatever level of suffering, if you've got the greatest understanding of suffering, when you see them even being happy, you have compassion because you know it's coming from attachment. So the deeper your understanding of suffering, back in the Four Noble Truths and in high school and junior school, you will have that level of compassion for them. It's not just, oh, poor people, not just for the sick people, not just for the tortured, no, for all sentient beings, because we're all locked in samsara, you know. So that's compassion. Love is when you see another person happy, you delight in their happiness. So you've got love, compassion, and then you've got a particular one that's called great compassion. That's a technical term, mahakaruna. And that is when you, not only do you have compassion when you see it, this is the action one, and this is the unique one of the Bodhisattva path. I'm getting to bodhicitta, I diverted again, I won't wander off, but I'm getting to bodhicitta, what it is. It's the culmination of this amazing compassion and great compassion. So compassion is, oh my God, look at the suffering. Great compassion goes, what can I do to help? It's the action one. That's why during this COVID-19, you can't believe the number of people. They've seen cooks who were having restaurants and now they're out there cooking for the nurses. People who actually see the suffering and don't just sit there being miserable, they reach out and help others. That's this one. That's incredible. What can I do? I never forget Martin Luther King. He said, it's good to see suffering. It's good to find fault. Look at the suffering. Look at the racism. But then you say, what can I do? That's great compassion. That's great, that's action, and that's the unique characteristic of the Bodhisattva path. So that will culminate in what they refer to as a special attitude that says that I, like a mother, it is my job, and even if I have to do it alone, it's my job to help every single sentient being. It's this courageous, outrageous attitude of the Bodhisattva. We have to cultivate it, you know. And then that kicks in eventually to bodhicitta when there's this shift has happened, where there's no longer the thought of I. There's only the thought in your mind of the children, as if you're the mother. But of course, you won't have attachment and anger by now. You've gone by, and you can't have that level of compassion unless you've done the wisdom wing work. That's the point. You can't possibly have that level. It can be like flashes of it, but we're talking constant, a genuine realization. No longer the thought of I. And it's got two main characteristics, this bodhicitta. Based upon this compassion, love, great compassion, is this powerful aspiration. There's the two aspirations unceasingly in your mind. One, to only benefit others and to liberate them from suffering. And two, knowing you're not a Buddha yet, you must work as hard as you can, as many lives as you can, as quickly as possible, to never give up becoming a Buddha, because then you're fully qualified. That's the components of bodhicitta. It's not an equivalent of compassion. It's the culmination of compassion. You know? So it's an outrageous state of mind. I mean, in our ordinary psychology, you'd be called mentally ill, I think, if you thought like that. Because we all, in the West and in neuroscience and psychology, we assume the presence of a very vivid self. We can't imagine that you'd have no longer a thought of self. We call that person mentally ill. So it's very hard to hear it in our culture. And you only have that when you've gone through the high school and junior school. You can't, you've got to completely understand karma, have incredible renunciation, give up attachment and anger to an incredible degree, be very blissful and clear yourself. You see, that's the thing too. When we think of having compassion, we think we're suffering. No, not possible, impossible. Suffering comes from anger and attachment. And that's a really good discussion here before we go into the 8 worldly dharmas again. At the moment, because we don't assume the possibility to get rid of attachment and anger, therefore we think attachment's normal. So our attachment now is mixed with our compassion, and it drags our compassion down. So if you come home from work from helping others, wherever it is, no matter how hard you work, and you're drained and depressed and exhausted, not physically, mentally, that's because you have attachment. And this is very interesting to hear. Because it's attachment, you see, compassion, you're helping the poor people, you're helping the suffering people, and you've got compassion, and you're happy to see them happy. You're so happy to do your work, and that causes you to persevere. But if you've got attachment, that means when you see suffering, it freaks out and it gets angry or gets depressed. That's because of attachment. You don't get depressed because you've got compassion. It is not a possibility. Compassion is a virtue. It can't cause suffering. It's crucial to understand this. If you suffer, when you see suffering, that's not because of compassion. That's because of attachment. That's very clear. When you know that, and as you get less attachment, that's why the Bodhisattvas have this insane compassion that never gives up. I mean, you know, there are many, I mean, Dalai Lama, I think, is an ordinary example to the world. Just the way he shows to the world. And it's not just he's not like potluck like that. He's that because they say he's a fully accomplished Buddha. You know, I don't know if that's true, but he's obviously a good example of this stuff that we're talking about. He's proof of the pudding. I mean, he hasn't stopped for 60 years. He hasn't stopped working for Tibetans and the world now for 60 years, unfailingly. Anybody who ever meets him, anybody in the world who meets him, I remember talking to journalists, to people who've interviewed him, everybody unfailingly says, you know, that he's happy, he's funny, he cracks joke about his enemies, he's unfailing, unflagging in his enthusiasm and his energy. He jokes and talks about how he gets angry and everything. That's just to make us feel better. But it's clear, he's got this enthusiasm, you know, and the enthusiasm is the key quality of the Bodhisattva. And we'll talk about that. I mean, people over the years I've interviewed, you know, I mean, we did articles in Mandalay when Dalai Lama came to Australia in '96, and the whole tour of the whole country. And we did a very big visit for like a month. We did Kala Chakra in Sydney, I think that year, maybe the next year, I can't remember. Anyway, we did a special issue of Mandalay. I was editing Mandalay. We had many issues and I did a big report on it. I interviewed like 50, 60 people who'd had contact, the police who guided him every day, the media, everybody. Kind of one paragraph interviews. Every single person. It was so moving to read, and you hear this all the time. People are moved by this. They felt that they were the most special person. Everybody felt that he loved them especially. The way he was funny and kind and compassionate, but no nonsense as well, and strong. He touched people's hearts so deeply, you know. I remember even the two plainclothes policemen who guarded him for like 1 month and took him here and there. They couldn't get over him. They was overwhelmed, you know. So they couldn't get over this person, this regular person who cracked jokes and hit him on the back and be happy and smile. Didn't give him long lectures, just a lovely, happy person. He has this powerful effect on people. I've seen it all over the world. I remember in '82 when he came to Europe, and Lama Yeshe, because he invited him to come to Europe, one of the inviters, and he got 10 of us Westerners to be his security guards. I mean, it's hilarious. I felt like I won the lottery, you know. So Lama made us wear lay clothes. I was a nun at the time, so I had to wear lay clothes. And 10 of us, 5 women and 5 men. So Lama being so radical, I mean, the Tibetans were shocked because they're very typically patriarchal. So there were these 5 women acting like security guards for His Holiness all through Italy. We went to see the Pope, and he went to Spain. He went to the Catholic monasteries, and he met all these great meditators. I mean, they were all blissed out meeting him. It was wonderful. So there's 2 months, 1 month and 6 weeks is traveling with him was incredible. Seeing close up the effect that he had on ordinary people. I mean, this is in 1982. Hardly anybody knew the Dalai Lama back then. It was like his second visit to Europe, you know. So in Spain, I remember in Barcelona, all these cities, every big public hall was packed with people, sometimes double the number. And I always remember this one lady, I'll never forget, this very traditional, very, you know, traditional, respectful, respectable Spanish lady with her high heels and her handbag on and her gloves on and everything, came into the hall late, you know, and she was kind of, you could see she was hungry for something, looking for something. He touched, I can't describe the effect of him. These Catholic monks, these Carthusians who meditate day and night, you know, day and night in this monastery in Spain. And I remember we girls couldn't go in, what to do, you know, they only let men in. So the boy guards went in with His Holiness and Lama Yeshe, and we girls stayed outside. I remember when they all came out, and I saw the faces of all these Catholic monks. They were radiant, they were joyful. And people told me they talked about emptiness the whole time and everything. They just loved the Dalai Lama. The effect that he has on people is incredible. I just couldn't get over seeing it, you know, everywhere. I remember one woman in London, she went, and I wasn't there, at the Royal Albert Hall. It was a big concert and 5,000 people or something. And she was in tears afterwards. And first of all, she was married to a Tibetan. She said, I never understand Buddhism. It's so complicated. I don't understand what enlightenment is. And I said, do you want to, but he was in tears from His Holiness. I said, do you want to be like His Holiness? He said, yes. I said, well, that's enlightenment. Good enough, you know. I mean, this effect he has. So then, you know, it touches ordinary people. So that somehow, after 45 years, 50 years, 60 years of knowing about him, you'd think you'd find some fault. Okay, some people find fault. I remember hearing a person recently, a friend of hers online, said that her friend said that, he's a pedophile. I mean, God knows where all these crazy conspiracy theories come from, but, you know, the maniac of the internet, God knows what people think. And of course, the Chinese communists hate him. But still, there's millions of people who adore the Dalai Lama. Just his presence makes people happy, you know. There's got to be something there. So, I mean, if he is what he is, a Buddha, that means he does not have ego grasping. He does not have attachment. He does not have anger. He does not have anxiety, fear, depression, anxiety, no matter how much the suffering of his people. He can't have it. That's the point. But he only has compassion. And of course, there are tears. I mean, I know when his mother died, he would cry when he talked about her. That's not suffering. He was having empathy for this amazing woman. Within 3 minutes, he's cracking jokes again. See, tears aren't suffering. He was coming from compassion. Compassion is empathy. You might get sad. You might get tired. Have a good sleep, and you pop up again next day, and off you go to work again. So suffering comes from attachment and fear. And because attachment only wants nice things. You see, attachment's a junkie. And that part of you that's called attachment only wants pleasant things. That's why aversion and depression come when you see suffering. So you can't stand it. You want to move it away. That's why we suffer, not because of compassion. Compassion is completely different. Compassion gives you enthusiasm and energy and want to never give up. And as Martin Luther King said, what can I do to help? It's very, very different. As again, we have to learn the difference between the neuroses and the virtues. So on the Bodhisattva path, we're really moving ahead, you know. So the goal in the next phase is to get this bodhicitta, to make this paradigm shift where you now exist for others, you know. And you're going to go from life to life, no matter how long it takes. So for that level of person, or even a person who's got great compassion, you are happy for a situation in which your delusions are right because you haven't got rid of them yet. They're kind of quiet. So you're so happy to get what you don't want. You are happy when you're insulted. You are happy when you get run over by a car. You are happy when someone is mean to you. This sounds mental illness to us. But it's just like, for me, Lance Armstrong. I remember reading this big fat 10,000 word article in the New Yorker about him. That was when he was still a good guy. Now he's a naughty boy. We know that. But this in the way we would think about it, this enthusiasm that bodhisattvas have for virtue, not for winning races. So using it as an analogy, I remember this fanaticism of Lance Armstrong. Of course, it's all attachment, but you can see about the enthusiasm, you know, if you think about it, to never give up. Based on attachment, of course. But so for a person like that, he prefers the high mountains. He doesn't want to go coasting down. He wants to be having the effort of testing every muscle to go up the mountain. That's the bodhisattva as an analogy. They're not going to sit back and rest on their laurels. There's no way. They're not attached to comfort. They're not attached to hearing nice words. They've gone beyond the 8 worldly dharmas. So that's the practice. If we haven't gone beyond them yet, we want to get to bodhicitta. We are glad when bad things happen. That's the entire meaning of transforming problems into happiness. And that's where the 8 worldly dharmas come in. So that means when you don't get the nice feelings, you're glad. You shift your mind and you say, this is good. And why is it good? One, because you just, by not getting what attachment wanted, that's called suffering. And if it's suffering, it's the fruit of a negative action. So if you greet it and are happy about it, you just purified it. I remember I did a talk in Miami years ago. And the topic was, why do bad things happen to good people? And there was a Lutheran, a Catholic, me, and a rabbi. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? And the topic was that topic. So the Catholic and the Lutheran, I didn't know what their answers were. I was a bit complicated. But when I gave my talk about karma, it was easy. Well, the rabbi clapped. He said, yeah, we have the same view. And of course, the Jews in the audience were gobsmacked. They didn't know. He was a Kabbalah rabbi. And they have the view of reincarnation and karma, he said. They don't use those words, obviously. But he said, we have a saying, every time something bad happens, we go, great, one less debt to repay. That's the transforming problems attitude. So of course you've got to be brave and you've got to be qualified to do that. If you're yet in a victim mentality in a relationship where you're being abused daily and you get another punch, you are not qualified to turn that into happiness. You've got more work to do first. You know, you've got to know where you're at. And that's why on this level of practice, they call it, another term for it is exchanging self for others. The whole approach of this is to get bodhicitta, which is where you've made that paradigm shift that now others are more important than you. I mean, again, like I said, in the West, that's wacko, you know. So it's an outrageous level of mind. And when you read the bodhisattva, when you read the stories or hear examples like His Holiness, they're the actually living example of these teachings. They're the proof of the pudding, you know. So it's very encouraging. If they can do it, we can do it. Or you hear about people like Lama Zopa, our teacher. You know, maybe some of you don't know him, but he's our boss. He's our teacher. He's the spiritual director of our centers. He's my teacher. So you hear about his life. You see the example of it. You see the work he's doing. For example, you hear the certain things like he doesn't sleep. He's the reincarnation of this meditator up in the mountains, in the Sherpa, I've often mentioned. Kunsang Yeshe, this great lay person, meditator in his past life, a tantric yogi who died with complete control. These great yogis can do that, and they literally choose their rebirth. They're in complete control of the process. So he got reborn as this little boy called, he's now known as Zopa. He wasn't called that then, Sherpa, born in 44 or 45 or something, same year as me. And since tiny boy, just showing these unusual qualities of being like a reincarnation of a lama. He would say the names of his, when he'd play games, for example, his little boy, his sister said, he'd kind of always acted the role of a lama all the time as a little boy. So he'd make mud pie dorjis and mud pie bells and mud pie torma cakes, and he'd do pujas, and he would announce that his benefactors were coming to puja, and he would give the list of his previous life benefactors, because when they're very little, and if they have controlled their rebirth, they have complete memory. They lose it as they get older. So, he acted always unusual. And so I always tell that story, that the Kunsang Yeshe, this yogi, the last 20 years of his life, he moved in this little cave. This is what they used to do up there. He's a layman, he'd back and forth doing his practice. And then he spent the last 20 years in a little cave. And the cave was just this hole in the wall. And it's known as Laudo. That means onions or radishes. I never know which one. So he became known as the Laudo Lama, the Radish Lama. So that cave up there, and it's a retreat center run by Lama Zopa's sister. And we do our trek up there. We did 3 treks already to raise money for up there. We'll probably do another one next year. Don't know when. Wait till see what happens. So anyway, when he was a little boy, as soon as Mummy would turn her back, little Zopa's gone. They couldn't find him. They'd find him crawling with his bare bottom, crawling up the path that they all knew led to the Laudo cave. So you can see, even you can deduce from this, as a little boy, as a baby, he knew who he was. He wanted to get back to his cave. So they'd find him sleeping in what they call the resting spot, a little spot halfway up the path, And then every time she turned her back, Zopa's gone, right? They'd always be looking for little Zopa, shout and yell at him to come home. And then anytime he could talk and walk, he'd be traipsing up this hill. Come home, his mother would say. He'd say, no, that is my home. So anyway, she figured she'd better check up with the local lamas. They did their divinations. And so because reincarnation, as you know, is an established system and has been in Tibetan Buddhism for several hundred years. So they did their divinations, this holy being. He said it would seem he is a reincarnation of Kunsang Yeshe. So then he was handed over to the monastery, which is typical. And he was, and so, what am I telling you the story for? Bodhisattvas. Anyway, the point is, since he's very tiny, then he met Lama Yeshe when he was about, when he was 12. A little boy in his monasteries, and then all his family decided to go on a pilgrimage to Tibet, which is like a 3-month journey, walking all the way. So they dropped him off at some monastery just on the other side of the border from Nepal in Tibet. So he spent a year or so there, and then he got to really like it there. There were Gelugpas, there were Nyingmapas in the Sherpa country, and they're kind of not so many. There are some monks and nuns, but they're a bit slack, it seemed. So when he got into the Gelugpas, which is our tradition now, he really enjoyed being a Gelugpa monk. He was studying, and then when his family came back to pick him up and deliver him back to his monastery, back to his cave, and become the resident Lama, he said he didn't want to go. So they had this big fight. He refused to go. He wouldn't go. So then the abbot at the local monastery decided, let him decide for himself. So he decided he wanted to stay. So his family went empty-handed back. So he stayed there in this monastery for a couple of years. And then 1959 came. So he had to escape from Tibet because he's in Tibet. So he got over to Bhutan, and then he got eventually to India. And then when he was about 15 or 14, he met Lama Yeshe. Lama Yeshe had come from Tibet. He was at Sarah J. Monastic University in Tibet. He was there since a little boy, 6 years old. And then he escaped from Tibet, and they were all sent, the Tibetans. There's a lovely movie on, I don't know if you've seen it. Charmaine told me. There's a nice 1-hour documentary done by the Tibetan TV or something about Buxa, this place called Buxa, where all the monks from all the traditions from Tibet were dumped. It used to be a prison. It was a horrible place. But they were all put there all together when they all came from Tibet. It's called the Buxa Lama. It's on YouTube, free. It's very inspiring. Just interviews some of the old monks who escaped. Buxa, B-U-X-A. It's just called the Buxa Lama. It's this documentary made by Tibetans, and something is just like historical, interviewing all the old monks and how they developed, and then how they eventually started the monasteries down in South India, which is now like little Tibet down there. Anyway, Lama Zopa met Lama. He was 10 years younger. He met Lama Yeshe in Buxa. Lama Yeshe was about 26. And Rinpoche was about 16. And then Lama Yeshe became his teacher. And then they remained together until Lama Yeshe passed away in 1984. So I'm just telling you about Lama Zopa. But the point is, with Lama Zopa, he's renowned for being a meditator. from his past life, he was a meditator. And since he's tiny, he even said when he first came to Buxa and he started meeting the Western people coming around, you know, so the whole world was changing. So he said he tried to learn English. So he memorized the dictionary and he memorized Time magazine, because that's how they use it in the monasteries. They memorize things, you know. So anyway, eventually with through Lama Yeshe, he got TB. They went to Darjeeling in about 1967 to heal. And then it's when they met their first Western student. And that's how all these centers started, you know. They met this Lama Yeshe, her name was Zina. Lama Yeshe used to call her a Russian princess. She was probably an Estonian aristocrat, but Lama liked Russian princess, you know. That was their first Western student in 67. But anyway, Lama Zopa is renowned, has always been, as a meditator. And people have observed, and all the Western students since then, when he's in Courtin monastery and they'd be having to take his cup of tea to him in the morning, you'd leave him at night and he's meditating, and you'd get up in the morning and he's meditating. I remember even one wonderful monk, one of our monks, called Michael. He's a Greek boy, but he was, this is an interesting story. I was supposed to be writing a history of Courtin for their big anniversary next year. It was supposed to be this year, but it got cancelled. 60th, 50th, 60th anniversary, yeah. 70, 18, 19, 100, 110, 120, 50th, yeah. So anyway, one of the stories, one of the interviews I've done is with this boy called Michael Lobsang Yeshe. He's Greek, and his mother, his father was Greek and his mother's Belgium or something. So she was American, I think, as well as Belgian. So she had left the husband, and in 1969, 1970, she came to Kathmandu, and that's when all these bunch of Westerners first met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, all these hippies coming to Kathmandu for drugs and enlightenment. I don't know why we conflated those two things. It's so weird. Anyway, Olivia, the mother, she really liked Buddhism, and so she decided she would give Michael to Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe. So of course in 1969, when Buddhism was meant to be just seen as a cult, and her family got wind of it, so they got the CIA onto Olivia to try and get this boy back, you know. And Michael was totally happy. He was loved. He was in heaven. So Michael talked about how all go up to Laudo, where they go in the summer, and you know, with a bunch of little monks up there, and he was about 4 or 5 at the time, maybe 6, and he would sleep in the back of Lama Zopa's meditation box, because Lama Zopa never lay down. He slept. There's a big box, and so Rinpoche is sitting in front meditating, and Michael would be in the back, a little boy, sleeping, and he'd go to bed at night, and there's Lama Zopa meditating, and wake up in the morning, and there's Lama Zopa meditating. So that's, you know, that's how he's always been known. So anyway, the interesting story about Michael, it's a separate story now. I'm just raving on stories. Anyway, Michael told me, years ago, he told me, when I first met him, 40 years ago, he told me that when he was very little this time, and suddenly the CIA are after his mum, so he's freaking out. He's very happy with the Lamas. He's living in Kathmandu with the Lamas. So he suddenly, mum comes in a taxi one day and grabs him, and they rush off to Delhi. They rush off to India, and he's a bit distressed. And he doesn't remember this story, but what happened was Lama Zopa eventually came to India to meet Olivia, and Michael was sitting there in Lama Zopa's lap. And Olivia told Michael this story later, that Olivia is trying to decide what's best for Michael. Is it best to give him back to Lama Zopa, or is it best for her to take him? So Michael, who's like 5, sits up in Lama Zopa's lap, and he looks at his mother and he says, "You're only my mother. He is my guru, and I'm going with him." So that was a decision made, which sounds shocking for the West. I mean, that's like cruelty to children. I know it might be a bit controversial, but Michael remembers vividly. He was just so happy to be always happy to be among the monks, you know. That's a story about Michael. And when Lama Zopa meditating. So all his life he's seen as a meditator. Now to think about that, some people mightn't have much sleep. I remember reading about one CEO who was so enthusiastic about his work. He slept 3 hours a night. If you've got enough enthusiasm, you can, right? And you hear about some people not needing much sleep. But these bodhisattvas, because they're great tantric yogis, meaning they completely control their subtle energy, they've got single point of concentration, they don't need sleep. They don't have to be unconscious. They can go to a subtle level where their mind is blissful. So it's quite a technical thing, and it's very practical. They don't need sleep. But not only that, the main thing is with these great bodhisattvas, the main reason they don't sleep is because they have compassion. They have incredible bodhicitta. That it would be, as Roger, his Australian monk attendant, says, for Lama Zopa, sleep is a disgusting waste of time, you know. I mean, so, okay, way to go. Way to go. All the teachings are there, all the methods are there for us to achieve it, but way to go, okay? One step at a time. So these great bodhisattvas, they have this, what drives them when they really got this bodhicitta, not to mention realization of emptiness, when they've given up all the delusions, there is only this wish. There's only this wish to be of benefit to others. Based also on the wisdom, this is what's powerful, based on the wisdom that sees their minds, which is due to clairvoyance, which is due to their practice, you know. So it's hard to kind of, when you read about it, it is reading about the saints. Like if you've been a Catholic, and I used to love the stories of the saints. I was so inspired, you know. But that's really what it is. But I think in our culture, we tend not to think, well, I can become a saint too. You'd be considered a bit arrogant if you decided to be a saint. Well, the word bodhisattva in Sanskrit is that one, you know, a great saint, a person who's perfected wisdom, who's perfected compassion, and is a trainee Buddha. And they go from life to life, never giving up. And you know, and so, yeah, so that's it's outrageous. It's kind of, there's no equivalent in our ordinary world of this level of compassion, you know. It's very powerful. So then one of transforming problems then within this framework has so much sense, because they're the enemy. They're the things that are preventing you to have this incredible love and compassion. They're preventing you, from being qualified to be of benefit to all sentient beings. If you can try and conceptualize that, like as if you were a mother. So like I say about a mother, she sees her child drowning. She has unbelievable compassion, but she doesn't sit there thinking, who will save my baby? She's got great compassion, which means I will do it. Even if she can't swim, she'll be in that water in 1 second. There's nothing will hold her back. I remember watching on the television years ago, all these amazing stories of what mothers do in outrageous situations. And one of them, this mother picked up a car to help her baby underneath. Another woman ran into a burning house. So they've still got attachment, but look at that unbelievable focus. All is in her mind as she ran into that house. If this was to get her child. If she was thought, oh my God, I might get burnt, that's the end of it. She'd stayed there. But she went into that house, no thought of herself. Well, that's what a bodhisattva is all the time for everybody. Not emotionally, it's just how they are, because they've done the work. They've done the work, you know. So the 8 worldly dharmas are the key way, the key enemy in the way of framing it in this framework here. This radical, outrageous approach. You will do anything to smash delusions. And the quickest way to smash a delusion, the quickest way for Lance Armstrong to get the best muscles is to get the highest mountain. It's obvious. The more the challenge, the better. That's what the bodhisattvas, they're supreme, everything's a challenge. So they are happy when bad things happen, happy when people abuse. That's what I said. I mean, in normal world, that's demented. You know, you're considered mentally ill. So we've got to conceptualize and imagine how that's possible. And you have to, you know, it's all there in the literature. And there are stages of this bodhicitta. There are stages of being a bodhisattva, you know, so it's pretty amazing. I think we can stop now. 10 to, but it'll do. All right, have lunch or do whatever you're going to do at noon. And I'll see you in about an hour and 10 minutes, okay? Contemplate what I said.